Hello and welcome back to a new episode of Tactician the Civil War, where we're playing the Union career mode. Last episode we successfully captured Richmond and pushed back the enemy. They now have less than 20,000 men in the field and they're completely demoralized. Therefore we can now change the orders of our armies. The main job of our army of the Northwest is to hunt down the enemy further. The rest of our forces are going to take large cities of the enemy. But before we can do that, we will have to build some supply stations behind our captured lines. Because some parts of our forces are already starving. East of Richmond we are still trying to capture Fort Wilson, but it doesn't look like our soldiers are getting ready to deploy. The main reason for that is that Porterfield's division is still on our flank, meaning that we would have to leave forces behind to deal with this threat, otherwise they could recapture Richmond. In our north, our army of the Shenandoah is ready to engage the enemy and they have been ordered south to Sperryville to drive away Field's corps. Around Charlottesville, the army of New York is going to build a new supply station, and down here the army of occupation has almost run out of provisions. They're going to drive back these forces that are getting close to Lynchburg, and there we are going to resupply. Our army of the Northwest is going to drive back these forces and is then going to focus on these gentlemen down there. And then they themselves are going to be dispersed over the entire south. Over here we have Morgan's raiders coming up. They're going to march down to Greensboro. There they're also going to build up supply. The same goes for McDowell's raiders, who have taken Raleigh. They are in the process of capturing the town and they're also going to build up another supply station. The next vital town that we have to contest is Norfolk, Virginia. It is protected by a fort, but otherwise there are no enemy soldiers present. This is going to be the job of the army of the Potomac once they've built up supply on their current position. And before we press play, I want to show you the new setup for the 3rd Division of the Department of Pennsylvania. They now field 4 infantry brigades, an entire cavalry brigade, and their artillery has also been messed up in one big battery. The rest of our forces are still able to move and therefore I didn't want to touch them, otherwise they might lose too much of their organization. And now we should see our soldiers moving out. 3rd Division is moving. We can see that the army of Virginia is pushing back to the north and the rest of our forces should also be coming up. Our men are moving up. We can see that these forces are now pulling back. They're getting closer to Lynchburg, but I hope that they're going to take the route south and trying to get into Confederate heartland. But they are of course not doing that. Or well, maybe they do. It looks like they wanted to beat our army of New York, but now they're trying to reorganize. They are rushing in the 1st Division again. And we are able to inflict heavy casualties and... Do I see this correctly? It almost looks like massive parts of the Confederate army have just disintegrated. Let's pause the battlefield real quick and zoom out a little. We can see that some parts of the Confederate army has withdrawn south, but we cannot see the forces that were up here. Let's take a look on the strategy. And yes, it actually looks like the Confederate armies that were on our northwestern flank have completely surrendered. The Confederates now have only 13,800 men left. At the beginning of this episode it was around 19,700. Well then, the rest of our forces can push forward. Our men over here are going to get into Lynchburg, they're going to build up supply. And we are going to build up another supply station over here. I think this one is one of the Confederates that might fall into disrepair. We can see that the enemy still has forces around Louisburg. And to my surprise, some enemy contingents have suddenly appeared over here at Greensboro. These might be forces that were to our north but were able to slip behind our lines. Morgan's raiders are still over there. They might even be strong enough to drive back this demoralized foe. And over here we can see that our freshly recruited army of the Shenandoah is getting close to Field's core. And over here we are still contesting this fort. We now have 7,000 soldiers that are attacking 34 men. We have already taken 21 casualties while the enemy suffered only 2, but time should be massively on our side. We completely outnumber our enemy, and if we would do one determined push, we should be able to break through their lines with ease. In 5 days, supply is also going to be built up here, meaning that we can push further to the south. The enemy is unfortunately able to regroup over here. 4th Division. Once you've reached your target, you're going to build up supply. We are going to need it. Oh well, 5th Division, you have already stopped moving. You are going to build up a supply depot. Rest of our forces are also moving up. And over here our army is also at their target. Some of our forces are at their destination. We can see that many Confederate forces are withdrawing. Vance's division is coming up with 17 soldiers. What a powerful division that is. Morgan's raiders weren't able to take Greensboro. The enemy is far too strong, and we can see that more of the enemy forces are withdrawing south. But hopefully, with Morgan's raiders now withdrawing to McDowell, this should open up our lines again. If not, we will march through Hillsborough, Roxborough and Dannyville to reconnect them to our main battle line. Lynchburg is going to take a week to set up supply, but I hope that the supply depot at the Lexington and the supply line over here with this railroad is going to make sure that our soldiers are well fed. And the army of the Shenandoah has arrived on their destination. The enemy army has withdrawn. And I have a new destination for them. They are going to attack Whiteville. They are going to use the railroad. This shouldn't take them too much time. And therefore we should be able to cut off the Confederacy from more reinforcements from the west. After that we are going to push up all the way to the border of our battleground. And if you take a look on the front lines, you can see that this town as well as Norfolk are the last large towns that the enemy holds in Virginia. After that, we might be able to force this entire state to surrender. And once this supply depot is up and running, our army of the Northwest is first of all going to kick out these forces, and then we are going to follow these roads all the way to the enemy. We are now getting informed that Banks is low on supply. We are already in the process of fixing that. 5 more days and then our supply is going to be flowing again. And luckily we were now able to defeat the garrison at Fort Wilson. Sully has surrendered and the support for the rebel cause should now start to waver, especially once we have driven out another Confederate army from Virginia. We are informed that the enemy suffered 36 casualties with 3 killed and the rest is wounded. But apparently they were able to slip away. We ourselves lost 42 of our soldiers with 4 men killed and 20 missing. The rest is wounded. But we were able to destroy the last threat that could get onto our flanks. But of course Porterfield's division with 1,600 men realistically is no threat to us. And once the 1st Division is at their destination, we are going to send our men forward. But this might take a little while. They are completely disorganized and they are going to need some time to rest. And we have been informed that some more Springfield rifled muskets are available on the market. I was able to equip some more of our soldiers with this musket, but we are currently running out of prestige. This is not the best situation for us, and over here it still takes 3 days until we can move forward. Many of our soldiers are now beginning to starve. Let's hope we can get the supply up before something terrible happens. The army of the Shenandoah is getting close to the railroad line, and from there on out they are going to push the enemy. Over here the Charlottesville depot is ready. The army of New York is also able to move. And we are also going to send them down to Whitewell. The more soldiers we have in the area, the quicker we are going to capture this town. Morgan has arrived at Raleigh, and this town is now firmly in Union hands. McDowell's raiders have earned another perk, and I think the best perks for their operations would be flying columns. This way they can carry more food, allowing us to get deeper into the Confederate lines. And what target would be more fitting than the town of New Bern? We are going to move via the railroad, and with that we should be able to cut off the Confederates from any form of blockade runners. We have now officially linked up our forces over here, and soon the Confederacy will simply implode while we rush through their ranks. Up north, the 2nd Division is ready to attack the enemy. Let's hope that the 1st Division is close enough to our forces so that we can make sure that we are not going to be alone in this fight. And yes, it looks like the 2nd Division is going to approach from the south, and now the rabbits have decided to run away. They are now further to the north. This is not ideal, but I think that they plan to withdraw. We are going to build up some more supplies over here. Our soldiers are currently starving, and we need to keep a close eye on them. We can see that the enemy is at West Point. We have the 3rd Division over here. Winfield Scott is getting resupplied, but it looks like Porterfield is trying everything he can to get back to his own lines. Maybe we are able to capture him. Nope. They are simply able to withdraw. And we have been informed that one of our colonels is wounded in action. Lynchburg has supplies, meaning that our army of occupation is now ready to move again. And therefore we are going to order our boys down to Greensboro. Our army of the Northwest is still unable to fully resupply. We have a supply depot in the area, but apparently it is not enough provisions in the area. Let's have a look how our supply situation is standing. And we can see that simply not enough supply is reaching the south. Hopefully with the supply that we have built up in this area, this should be enough. We now have October, meaning that we also cannot forage for a lot of supplies. Still, we are going to order our men forward with the hope that we can simply snatch supplies from our enemies. Latest at Raleigh, we should be able to resupply, as the men from Morgan and from McDowell should not use a lot of supply there. And I'm happy to report that McDowell has made it to New Bern. We're also going to build up supply over here just to make sure that our soldiers are kept well fed. And even though our army of the Potomac is struggling with low ammunition supplies, I am still ordering them forward. Our target is Norfolk. We can see that field scores over there with 50 soldiers, but this is simply not going to be a match for our forces. And after that, we should see another Confederate town falling into our hands. Over here, more of the rebel forces are withdrawing. Let's push forward. Our men are ordered to do so, and we have accomplished another action. And before we pick any option, it is important for me that we pick out new weaponry. We are now in command of all Union armies, meaning that Cody's Remington M1858 seems fit for us. The main reason why I'm picking out new stuff is simple. The more fancy we dress, the more prestige that we can accumulate. And we need to spend prestige to build up supply stations. If we don't build up supply stations, our soldiers are unfortunately going to starve. And for $1,000 we can hold a political rally. We are going to side with the Republican Party and we are going to get 1,000 prestige in the process. This is almost going to bankrupt us, but prestige is the much more important currency. Our soldiers are still ordered to push forward, and after that we are hopefully able to resupply. And we can see over here that our forces are moving forward. Porterfield's division is also trying to get up to Norfolk, and the commander of the Army of the Potomac has for now decided to hang back. Let's also order him forward, and more of the Confederate forces are withdrawing. Over here supply is getting built up. After that our soldiers are hopefully able to resupply. And Winfield Scott over here is still struggling with ammunition. The rest of our men should be looking good. Let's see if we are going to have a fight down here or if the enemy is going to fall back further. Tomorrow we are going to arrive at Norfolk and we can see that Porterfield's division is once more embarking on their ships trying to get away. Our men are now getting desperate as supply is running out. And it looks like we will have to attack Norfolk's fort proper. Morgan's raiders are now getting attacked by Anderson's division. They have over 4,600 soldiers, they have 520 cavalrymen and they have artillery, while we only have 2,800 men over here. Meaning that I will order Morgan to fall back. This is effectively the only thing that we can do. And it should come to no surprise that the enemy would try to counterattack our forces. Our men are coming up, however. We are soon going to take command of Greensboro. And our army of the Northwest is going to march down as well. Some of our soldiers still have some provisions. And we now simply have to push through. Down there we will get food, we will get everything we want. But we first need to reach it. And if possible, some of our soldiers are going to get up there via the railroad first. We are in desperate need of the supplies within the city. Army of the Potomac over here has stopped for the moment. Once daylight brings on, once we have hit 7 or 8 o'clock, they are able to move again. Porterfield division is over here. The rest of our forces are looking good over here. Let's send them forward. Commander, also move up. And over here, these men are still in need to wait for 2 days for extra supplies. We might see a battle as we are pushing through these lines, but it looks like the rebels are much more willing to fall back. Down here, the Army of the Valley is also falling back. Morgan's raiders is coming up again. And we are now besieging the fort of Norfolk. Very good. Let's take a look on how this situation is looking in its entirety, especially with the front lines. We can see that we are now getting closer to the enemy. We officially do not control the area over here, but this is going to change shortly. We are besieging the enemy over here. These men are about to be resupplied and rejoining our lines. And down here we are officially starting to take Whitfield. Army of the Shenandoah has also gained their first quirk, so flying columns it is for them as well. I want them to march up to Salem. They apparently need to do that on foot to make sure that we can connect our supply lines. And down here our forces are ordered into Greensboro. Morgan's Raiders, I want you to march all the way up here. This way we should be able to cut off more of the Confederate supply line, and Charlotte is also on this railroad line. Down here we have reached New Bern. We are about to capture it. And our 2nd Division should potentially be strong enough to drive back these forces on their own. Let's also order our 1st Division down to link up with them. The rest of our forces still need to get into rally themselves. Allegedly, the enemy is evenly matched with us. I do not know why they are saying that. As we can see, more of the Confederate army withdrawn. Let's hope we can take over the supply depots before the enemy could burn them down. Otherwise, we might have some soldiers starving. How is our siege over here looking? The enemy has in total 1,300 men, while we have 1,500 soldiers on the battlefield. And I think tomorrow we are going to start our attack on these forces over there. Up north we are finally getting some resupply, at least with ammunition, but food is still looking dire. Rally has been reached. And we can see that the enemy is simply running wherever we move. And before we are going to start the Battle of Norfolk, let's go over a couple orders. The Army of the Shenandoah has linked up with our forces over here, and they're now ordered further to the south to take control of this border hub. Further to the north there are still a couple Confederate hamlets, but they should fall into our hands once we have taken over Whiteville. Morgan's Raiders have reached their destination and they are now marching down to Charlotte, North Carolina. We have an enemy prison camp in the area, as well as some manufacturing and a coal mine. If we can take care of this city, a lot of prisoners should get back to our lines and we should get a little bit of revenue. 1st Division of the Army of Occupation is now well fed again. And the next staging ground for our further assaults is going to be Troy. On our way we should be able to drive back these soldiers further into the south. And we can still see that some enemy forces are holding up over here. 4th Division is still not very well supplied. But we do have a bunch of provisions in the area. Let's get our forces closer into the city. Hopefully this way none of our men will starve. It would be tempting to send some forces around to Plymouth. But for now our men need supplies. And our long neglected army of the Department of Pennsylvania has gotten a very exciting order for them as well. They're still low on food, but I am ordering them to engage. We have made out another Confederate prison camp. And another vital haven over there. Therefore our soldiers are going to embark on ships and they're going to perform a naval invasion on Plymouth proper. This way we should not only liberate many of our prisoners of war, we should also take over the majority of North Carolina. After that, South Carolina is the last state that we haven't set a foot in. But now it is time to finally capture Norfolk. Gentlemen, today is October 26, 1862. Our scouts report that the enemy is near Fort Norfolk, Virginia, and our army is to prepare for battle. We are facing Field's corps under command of John B. Magruder, with an unknown strength of men and artillery. The enemy army is green and the morale is reported to be broken. Reports indicate the supply situation is outstanding. The supply state of our army is outstanding as well. And we can see that Porterfield's division has already deployed on the field. They have 1,600 soldiers that are made of 1 cavalry regiment and 2 infantry regiments. The battle can begin, and just in case that we can immediately deal with our enemy, I have organized our forces as follows. Our 1st division is going to take care of this route. If the enemy gets reinforcements from there, we are going to immediately massacre them. Our 2nd division has encircled the enemy over here. This fight over here is not going to be long, and I do not want to waste your time watching the enemy approach our lines. Now let's show them why they should start laying down their arms already. And already we can see that some parts of the enemy army are withdrawn. They have already suffered 35 casualties while we have suffered 7. And our men are opening up on them. Cavalry, you're going to get over here. And you men are going to move up. We are not letting the enemy to get away. This unit from South Carolina has held a little bit longer than their friends did. Men get in there, open fire, very good. 14 South Carolina is falling back. We have a minor victory right from the start. They have suffered 188 casualties. And within a minute, this battle should be over. After this very small skirmish, the enemy suffered 275 casualties, while we only lost 37 men, and hopefully this will also force the fort to surrender. And there we have it, victory at Fort Norfolk. The Norfolk garrison is fleeing in a panic and Colonel Cutshaw loses face. The support for the rebel cause wavers. We were able to kill 24 Confederate soldiers and captured 66 more. The rest of them are wounded and are limping somewhere else. Our own casualties contain 37 men with 2 men killed and 6 missing. We have captured 158 rifles from our enemy. And we should now see our victorious soldiers marching into the fort. Unless, of course, we still have to contain that. Well, unfortunately it looks like the fort garrison does not want to surrender, even though it was stated. They still have 28 soldiers. Let's just hope our men can deal with that threat quickly. Over here we have the Hampton Roads Squadron withdrawing. Let's send our own ships after them. We do not want to see our soldiers getting captured on the high seas. I've not tested out the naval combat so far, but I do not want our soldiers to get captured. And further to the south, officially Greensboro is still in enemy hands, meaning that we unfortunately need to withdraw the army of occupation closer to this line. The enemy has some large contingents over there, and even though we are pressing them, they could simply retreat into our own lines, forcing us to fall back, and they could inflict a defeat on us. Therefore, it is necessary to pull the army of occupation back for the moment. The rest of our soldiers are slowly getting resupplied. We are now almost full of food and ammunition again. And once these contingents have arrived, our army should be intact in no time. We can see these forces are falling back and the first parts of our army are about to make a landfall. They have not been captured by these units, and it looks like the headquarters of the Department of Pennsylvania is going to arrive first. The Atlantic Squadron is coming up themselves, and these men are still on boarding. More forces are now at their destination. We are now besieging Plymouth. And Morgan's men have arrived at Charlotte. Once more, we are going to order them to build up a supply depot. Further to this section, the army of the Shenandoah is marching out again to capture this trading hub. Unfortunately, this front line was closed again, I guess because we not control this city, meaning that as soon as we leave a town, they will switch back their legions. Over here, the situation is looking okay. We have lost almost 200 soldiers against only 27 men, but this is a massive fort. And I hope that these men are going to leave port at some point. Come on, the headquarters were able to arrive. What takes you so long? And we can see that over here that the enemy has some ships ready. Winfield Scott has a rather large brigade. And the enemy should not have anything big over in this section. Therefore, I am willing to send them forward by rail to then reinforce Plymouth on this way. Is Greensboro back under control yet? Almost. It is almost back under our control. And these forces have also almost arrived at their target. We now have food again. And we have officially entered the next winter season. Ammunition supply is now becoming a massive problem for us. Still, I do not want to stop our relentless push on the enemy. How is the situation around Norfolk looking? They now have suffered 3 casualties. We are supposed to have a 42% win chance on this target. And if these men are unwilling to move via ship, we are going to order them to move on foot. Okay, the 2nd Division has now disembarked and the 1st Division is now also starting to move. Scott was able to drive back the army of the Potomac and can now move on foot. Let's hope we make it in time. 5th Division is still undersupplied, they need to get closer. And finally, the Fort Norfolk has surrendered. We unfortunately suffered over 214 casualties in this fight, with over 209 of our soldiers missing. Meaning that they most likely will end up in a Confederate POW camp, or they're lying dead in a ditch somewhere else. But let's now order our army of the Potomac to capture Norfolk. With that, another victory condition of our great war should be reached. The Atlantic Squadron is there. Is there a fitting target to blockade? Well, not really. I want them to march down to New Bern. Maybe we can at least make sure that these parts are not getting anything shipped over the rivers. And to our north, we have successfully taken Whiteville, Virginia. Let's order the men from the Army of New York down. They are going to get in contact with Morgan's raiders that are currently capturing Charlotte. Greensboro is now also back in our hands, and it looks like we are currently building up this field hospital. And if I'm not mistaken, the Confederates have burned down the supply depots that we have built in the area. This is most unfortunate. Let's order McClellan to rebuild this one. This is seriously crippling our options to move. Fayetteville is the next target for our advance. But before that, we need to drive back Anderson's division and the army of the Shenandoah. They still have some good fighting strength in them. And therefore we are going to commit our 1st, 4th and 5th division for that push. The rest of our men are currently holding back. We can see that the army of the Potomac is over there, as well as Vance's division, and they have the army of North Carolina over there with 2,700 forces. Porterfield's division Fields Corps is still trying to withdraw. They are down to 3,000 men. And finally, reinforcements are arriving at the Department of Pennsylvania around Plymouth, meaning that these forces should be safe. Once we've driven back these enemies that are threatening our flanks, we can move down to Fayetteville. So let's keep the men moving. If we notice tomorrow that this field hospital is not getting built ever quicker, we are going to march down ourselves. We're getting in contact with the enemy, but they have decided to withdraw. And the Republicans maintain their majority. Lincoln's support is secured and the Union stands united. A disappointment for Davies, and the Copperheads lose support. Now let's order our army of the Northwest down to capture Fayetteville. We're going to rout more Confederate forces on the way. And after that, the majority of the Confederate supply bases should be destroyed. It is a real shame that we are so low on ammunition, but hopefully we are somehow able to soon resupply. Winfield Scott is about to arrive. The same goes with the 1st Division. And the 2nd Division has also disembarked, but it is taking them time to arrive. And when we take a look on Norfolk, it looks like this city is soon also going to change hands. We can see that the Confederates alongside Carthage are now withdrawing. Come on, men, do not stop your advance. We are going to get to Fayetteville.
It is well that war is so terrible, or we should grow too fond of it. Robert E. Lee. Chapter 3. A War So Terrible. The vast bodies of American men, in companies, regiments, brigades, armies of tens of thousands strong, marched to the beat of the drum, clashing, maneuvering, cheering, yelling, killing, perishing. The rebellion that was to be over in 90 days in a neat showdown is now a war so terrible that America has never before witnessed such ruin. From the ill-organized, poorly drilled, and equally poorly led mass of eager amateurs thrown at the mercy of modern firepower of Minié ball, shot and shell, disciplined armies of determined veterans emerge. The innovations that once served bringing economic growth and spreading civilization have now been harnessed to serve this terrible war. Steamships clad in iron navigate the waterways, while troop movements and logistical support utilize railroads, transforming war itself from Napoleonic to industrial, providing new means of slaughter in the fields of battle with never-before-seen efficiency. Having secured continuing support in Union policymaking for the time being, President Lincoln is determined to win the war, to again unite the nation. But the prolonged war and the mounting casualties are starting to take their toll, with the number of volunteers diminishing and political rivals in support of immediate peace with the South emerging with louder voices. To silence these voices, Lincoln needs decisive military victories. As long as the Union armies are victorious, so long the people will fight. If the willingness of the citizen to fight dies down, so will any hopes of restoring the Union. In the South, the war that was supposed to ensure independence, preferably with the support of the sympathizers of the Southern cause, has reached a point of no return. With the war dragging on, and with the seemingly inexhaustible Northern resources against them, chances of victory seem to slip farther into horizon. For the South to prevail, decisive action must be taken to break the Northern spirits and armies, to force them to award the Southern states their independence in choosing their own destiny. That is their God-given right, even if achieving it means unprecedented suffering, want, and slaughter. War means fighting, and fighting means killing.
Well, for a moment I thought it was over and that the Confederates finally accepted defeat. But no, we have just entered the next chapter of this bloody war. It is the bloodiest war in American history and the casualties are mounting. Both sides gained grand victories and the numbers of volunteers are now plummeting. New campaign objectives have been publicized, and Saltville has been captured by the Union. The Confederate salt production is weakened, and further raids into Florida and Louisiana are going to happen. And now the last objectives on our list are the invasion of Norfolk, something that is very well underway, as well as the invasion of North Carolina. New Bern has to fall, the same goes with Plymouth. After that, we have to break the Confederate morale. If it falls below 25, they are going to disintegrate. Unfortunately, their morale is still at a whopping 62 points. And if I look at the map, I wonder why. Virginia has fallen. They only have the Army of Northwest in the area. That got rapidly reinforced. They have over 3,000 soldiers now. For the majority of time, this force only had a couple artillery pieces, and for some reason we were never able to engage them in battle. Well then, our Army of New York is going to push back. I think I ordered them to build up a supply hub, but that never came to be, meaning that they are now starving. Once they're resupplied, we are going to take out this army. Further to the south, Charlottesville is in the process of getting captured. Union forces are approaching the enemy defensive line over here. And we are also soon going to march into Fayetteville. New Bern is about to be captured. And the conquest of Plymouth has also just begun. I'm going to order the units from the 3rd Division to get into a defensive stance, just to make sure that they have the best fighting options. And up north, Norfolk is going to surrender soon as well. Our 2nd Division for some reason is not moving. let's once more order them down to Plymouth. And as long as the Confederates cannot simply pull units out of thin air, we should still have victory secured without recruiting massive amounts of fresh forces. We are now marching into Fayetteville. 2nd Division, you're going to build up a supply hub. The same goes with the 5th as soon as they reached their target. 5th Division is now there, build up these supply stations. And more of our forces are arriving. This supply station is going to be ready in 4 days. This hospital is going to be ready in 5. After that we are able to push south. And the Union invasion of Norfolk was a success. The Gosport shipyard has been recaptured and the Confederate trade is compromised. Citizens in the north are celebrating while panic is ensuing in the Confederate Congress. Supply is not the best, therefore we are once again ordering our men to build up a supply station. And I wonder if our Potomac flotilla is going to be strong enough to destroy the Hamptons Roads squadron. They have 15 ships, but of those 5 are disabled. They have 15 guns while we have 61. Therefore, let's send our boats out to hit them. And the 1st Atlantic blockade squadron should be strong enough to hit the James River squadron. And with that we should hopefully cripple the Confederate Navy. Once the supply up here is up and running, we are going to push our forces south. We are going to get through these forces that are currently building up a supply depot for us. We are going to push back these forces and we are going to link up with our forces over on this section. Wilmington is another large town in the south of Carolina. And I hope to reach that soon. But before that, Fayetteville has to fall. The Army of New York is getting into Whiteville. Let's hope they will get some supplies over there. They are so demoralized that they can't even build anything, even if it would save their lives. Hopefully we are able to pull supplies from all these different sectors, otherwise these men might starve. Or we would have to order them to fall back. Provisions are low over here. And Union coastal operations are successful. New Bern and Plymouth are officially taken and the Confederate trade further compromises. Citizens in the north are celebrating even more, and the Confederate Congress should completely panic at this point. We can see that the Army of the Shenandoah is coming up and a couple more strong Confederate contingents. And there was a disaster at the Chesapeake Bay. The 1st Atlantic blockading squadron has been defeated. They have lost 2 ships. I wonder how this is possible. On paper we were so much stronger than this fleet. Oh well. And because we can't only have one problem at the time, there was a massive disagreement between us and our subordinate Colonel McLean. He has now quit and another officer has taken his role. Let's hope this man is competent. And over here we are luckily able to wipe the floor with the Confederate ships. Let's hope all of our ships make it unscathed and maybe we're able to completely destroy this squadron. We could definitely need some good news. Now with this city taken and supplies are also building up, I hope at least. Let's still order the construction of another supply station. It cannot hurt. We should soon be able to move further inland. New Bern has been captured. And it doesn't look like the enemy has anything at Wilmington. We're going to use the railroad and we should arrive at no time. Fayetteville is captured and we are still building up supply. To our north, the Confederates have almost built up a supply depot over here. And these men are simply starving. Can we get them closer to Lynchburg? We have supplies over there. Do we also have... Yes, we have massive amounts of provisions at Lynchburg. Can we order them to take the railroad? I do hope so. There they can eat, there they can rest, and there we can hopefully get our forces back together. Our army of the Shenandoah has stopped moving. They need to get down to Morgan's raiders. They will get supply over there. And still officially we are evenly matched with our enemies. We can see that the Hamptons Road Squadron is in the area. Officially they do not have many ships. They have 10 ships, 10 of them are disabled, and they do not have any artillery. Let's get the Annapolis Squadron forward. Maybe we can capture them. This would definitely help our cause. And we can see that the enemy is getting ready to move. McDowell's raiders are moving south. I want them to capture the next Confederate stronghold. And we can see that the Confederates are getting ready to move them south. I guess they want to take out the advantages that we fought so hard for. Let's get our men moving. We are going to abandon this supply hub. But the Confederates were so kind to build us a new one over here. Maybe our men will be well fed once they have reached that position. Situation in Fayetteville is developing further into our favor. We are getting some more supplies. But supply itself is looking bad. If I could build more railroads, I would do it, but I do not know how. Morgan's raiders are taking their sweet time. And in Greensboro, we are still waiting for that military hospital. One more day and it is done. And we have won a glorious victory at the James River. The Hampton Roads Squadron is in retreat, but all enemy ships were able to escape. This is not what I wanted to see, but we cannot change it. And if we take a look on our strategy, we can see that we now control each and every of our objectives except breaking the enemy morale. This is a massive problem for us, because they might get stronger as the war progresses. They are going to recruit even more forces. While our own forces are dispersed over the entire south. Many of our men are hungry, and I do not know how we could get them more food. But still, we need to send our forces out. Supply is still getting built over here. We cannot do a lot to make that quicker. And we are about to capture this city. Maybe that is going to be enough to force back the enemy. And over here, the Department of Pennsylvania is finally moving. And we finally have the option to fight a new battle. The Army of the Peninsula is in contact with the Army of Occupation. Thomas Jackson has about 11,000 men under his command, while we have over 21,000. But I feel that this battle is something that we are going to tackle in the next episode. We have made a lot of progress, and soon the Confederacy should simply collapse. We control almost the entirety of Virginia, we control the majority of North Carolina, and soon we are going to push into South Carolina proper. After that, the Confederate armies are going to be without support and supply. Food and ammunition supply for our own soldiers are critical, and I cannot improve their situation in the moment. But I hope that once we have taken out the last Confederate cities, this war should be over. Now, this has to be it for now. I hope you have enjoyed this episode, and until we meet again, I wish you all a great time.